Chapter 1: The Power of Non-Reaction. Confidence isn't about having all the answers. It's about not needing to prove you do. The most powerful people in any room share one quality that sets them apart from everyone else. And it's not intelligence, charisma, or even success. It's something far more subtle, yet infinitely more impactful. They don't react to everything. While others scramble to respond to every comment, criticism, or provocation, truly confident individuals pause. They assess. They choose their response rather than being controlled by their impulses. Think about the last time someone tried to get under your skin. Maybe they made a snide comment at work, questioned your abilities in front of others, or a family member pushed those buttons they know exactly how to push. Your immediate instinct was probably to defend yourself, to explain your position, or to fire back with equal force. That reaction, that instant need to respond, gave them exactly what they wanted. It gave them control over your emotional state. It gave them power over you. Non-reaction is your first line of defense and your greatest source of power. When you master the pause between stimulus and response, you take back control of your life. You become someone who cannot be manipulated, provoked, or thrown off balance by the words or actions of others. This is where real confidence begins, in the space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. Let me tell you about your brain for a moment, because understanding this will change everything. Your brain has two primary systems for processing threats. The amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep in your brain, responds instantly to perceived danger. When it detects a threat, it floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline within milliseconds. This is the fight or flight response, and it's designed to keep you alive when facing physical threats. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, your vision narrows, and your rational thinking shuts down. All of this happens before you're even consciously aware of it. The prefrontal cortex, however, handles rational thought, planning, and deliberate decision-making. It's the part of your brain that makes you human, that allows you to think about the future, to consider consequences, to choose your actions based on your values rather than your immediate impulses. Here's the problem, and this is crucial to understand. Your amygdala can't tell the difference between a charging lion and a sarcastic comment from your colleague. Both trigger the same cascade of stress hormones. Both activate the same survival mechanisms. When you react immediately to criticism, insults, or provocations, you're letting your primitive brain run the show. You're responding as if your life is in danger when really, it's just your ego that feels threatened. Non-reaction means creating space between the trigger and your response. In that space, you shift control from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. You move from survival mode to strategic mode. You stop being a puppet whose strings can be pulled by anyone who knows the right words to say. Let me give you a practical technique that you can start using immediately. It's called the 3-second rule. Before responding to anything that triggers an emotional reaction, count to 3. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. This simple technique accomplishes several things simultaneously. First, it interrupts the automatic stress response. Your amygdala fires, but then it waits for confirmation that the threat is real. When you pause, when you breathe, you're essentially telling your brain that you're not in immediate danger. Second, it signals to others that you're in control. People who react instantly appear nervous, defensive, insecure. People who pause appear thoughtful, composed, confident. Third, it gives your rational brain time to engage. 3 seconds is enough for blood flow to return to your prefrontal cortex, enough for you to consider your options rather than just reacting. In practice, this looks like someone criticizing your work, and instead of immediately defending yourself or explaining why they're wrong, you take a breath. You might say, "That's an interesting perspective," or simply nod and say nothing at all. The discomfort you feel during those 3 seconds is your ego demanding to be heard. It's screaming that you need to defend yourself. That silence means agreement, that you'll look weak if you don't respond immediately. Ignore it. That discomfort is the feeling of growth. It's the feeling of you taking back power that you've been giving away for years. Here's what most people don't understand about non-reaction. They think it means being passive, being a doormat, letting people walk all over you. Nothing could be further from the truth. Non-reaction is not the same as no action. It's about choosing your battles and fighting them on your terms, not on terms dictated by someone else's provocation. When someone insults you and you immediately snap back, you've allowed them to determine the time, place, and manner of the conflict. You've let them set the agenda. When you pause, when you choose not to engage in that moment, you maintain the power to address the issue when and how you see fit, or to dismiss it entirely as beneath your attention. Think about water for a moment. Water is soft, yielding, non-reactive. Yet it carves through mountains given enough time. It doesn't fight the rock, doesn't react to the rock's hardness. It simply flows around obstacles, persistent but not aggressive, powerful but not forceful. This is the essence of non-reactive power. You become like water, impossible to grasp, impossible to provoke, flowing around obstacles while slowly, inevitably reshaping your environment. Let's talk about what happens in real-world situations when you practice non-reaction. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone takes credit for your idea. The old you would have immediately interrupted, corrected them, made sure everyone knew it was your idea. The new you pauses. You observe. You notice who else in the room knows the truth. You consider whether this battle is worth fighting right now, or whether you're better served by letting this person reveal their character while you document your contributions through other channels. Maybe you address it later, privately, strategically. Maybe you address it publicly, but at a time of your choosing when you have the evidence and support lined up. The point is, you're not reacting, you're responding. You're not being controlled, you're in control. Or imagine someone insults you on social media. The old you would have typed out a furious response immediately, defending yourself, attacking them back, making sure everyone knew you weren't going to take that disrespect. The new you reads the comment, feels the spike of anger, and then closes the app. You go for a walk. You let the emotion pass through you like a wave. An hour later, you might choose to respond with a brief, measured statement. Or you might choose to say nothing at all, recognizing that some people are trying to bait you into a reaction because that's the only way they can feel significant. Your silence, your non-reaction, denies them that satisfaction. It makes them powerless. Non-reaction also protects your energy. Every time you react emotionally to something, you're spending energy. You're burning mental and emotional fuel that could be used for your goals, your growth, your happiness. Reactive people are constantly exhausted because they're constantly engaged in battles, most of which don't matter. Non-reactive people conserve their energy for things that truly matter. They're like elite athletes who don't waste movement, who are efficient and purposeful in everything they do. There's a powerful concept in martial arts called mushin, or no mind. It refers to a state of mental clarity where you respond to attacks without conscious thought, without emotional reaction. You simply move, flowing from one position to another, never off balance, never losing composure. The opponent can't predict your movements because they're not driven by emotion or ego. They're driven by pure awareness and training. This is what non-reaction looks like at the highest level. You're not suppressing emotion, you're transcending it. You feel everything, but you're not controlled by what you feel. Practice this daily, in small ways. When someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of honking and cursing, breathe and let it go. When your phone buzzes with a message that would normally stress you out, instead of immediately reading and responding, finish what you're doing first. When someone disagrees with you, instead of immediately arguing your point, say, "Tell me more about why you think that." These small practices build the muscle of non-reaction. Over time, you'll find that things that used to ruin your day barely register. You'll find that people who used to push your buttons can't seem to find them anymore. You'll find that you have more mental space, more emotional bandwidth, more power. The ultimate form of non-reaction is outcome independence. This means you don't need things to go your way to maintain your emotional stability. You prefer certain outcomes. You work toward certain outcomes, but you're not attached to them. If someone rejects you, you don't react with devastation because your sense of self isn't dependent on their approval. If a project fails, you don't react with panic because your identity isn't tied to that one success. You become like a mountain, solid and unmovable, while storms rage around you. This is the foundation of dangerous confidence. When people realize they can't manipulate your emotions, can't provoke you into reactions, can't control you through approval or criticism, you become formidable. You become someone who operates by your own rules, who maintains composure in chaos, who radiates a quiet power that doesn't need to announce itself. This is where your journey begins, with mastering the simple but profound act of not reacting to everything that demands your attention. Most people live their entire lives at the mercy of their feelings, riding waves of anxiety, anger, excitement, and depression like a small boat in a storm. They wake up and immediately check how they feel, and that feeling determines their entire day. If they feel good, the day is good. If they feel anxious, the day is ruined before it begins. This is not emotional mastery, this is emotional slavery. Emotional mastery doesn't mean becoming a robot who feels nothing. It means developing the ability to experience emotions fully while not being controlled by them. It means understanding that emotions are information, signals from your subconscious about what's happening around you and within you. But they're not commands that must be obeyed. You can feel angry without lashing out. You can feel afraid without running away. You can feel sad without spiraling into depression. The emotion passes through you, informs you, and then moves on. You remain stable. Let's start with overthinking, because this is where most people lose the battle before it even begins. Overthinking is what happens when your mind tries to solve emotional problems with logic. You feel anxious about a presentation, so you think about it constantly. You analyze every possible thing that could go wrong. You rehearse responses to questions you might be asked. You imagine scenarios where you fail, where people judge you, where your career is damaged. And the more you think, the more anxious you become, which makes you think even more. It's a vicious cycle that feeds on itself. Here's the truth about overthinking. Your brain is trying to protect you, but it's using the wrong tool. When you face an emotional challenge, your logical mind steps in because that's what it knows how to do. It tries to think its way out of a feeling. But you cannot think your way out of anxiety any more than you can think your way out of hunger. Emotions require emotional processing, not mental analysis. The solution to overthinking is not more thinking, it's less thinking and more feeling. I know that sounds counterintuitive, especially in a book about confidence and strength, but stay with me. When you feel anxiety rising, your instinct is to figure out why you're anxious and fix it. Instead, try this. Sit with the anxiety. Feel it in your body. Notice where it lives. Is it in your chest? Your stomach? Your throat? What does it actually feel like? Is it a tightness? A flutter? A heaviness? Get curious about the sensation rather than the story your mind is telling about why you should be anxious. This is called somatic awareness, and it's one of the most powerful tools for emotional mastery. When you shift your attention from the thoughts to the sensations, something remarkable happens. The emotion begins to dissipate. Why? because emotions are designed to be temporary. They're signals, and once the signal is received, once you've actually felt the feeling, it naturally fades. But when you avoid the feeling by thinking about it, analyzing it, or distracting yourself from it, the emotion gets stuck. It loops. It intensifies. By actually feeling it, by being present with the physical sensation, you complete the emotional cycle and allow it to pass. Let me give you a framework for processing emotions in real time, something you can use whether you're about to walk into a high-stakes meeting or dealing with relationship conflict. First, name the emotion. This sounds simple, but most people skip this step. They just feel bad and try to make the feeling go away. Instead, get specific. Are you anxious? Angry? Disappointed? Frustrated? Hurt? Naming the emotion activates your prefrontal cortex and immediately reduces the intensity of the feeling. There are studies showing that simply labeling an emotion can reduce activity in the amygdala by up to 30%. Second, locate the emotion in your body. Close your eyes if you can and scan your body. Where do you feel this emotion physically? This step grounds you in the present moment and prevents your mind from spiraling into stories about the past or future. Third, breathe into that location. Imagine your breath flowing to that tight spot in your chest or that knot in your stomach. With each exhale, imagine the tension releasing slightly. This isn't about making the emotion disappear instantly. It's about creating space around it, about being with it rather than fighting it. Fourth, ask what this emotion is trying to tell you. Emotions are information. Anxiety might be telling you that you're unprepared and need to do more work, or it might be telling you that you care deeply about the outcome. Anger might be telling you that a boundary has been crossed and needs to be addressed. Sadness might be telling you that you've lost something important and need time to grieve. Listen to the message without necessarily acting on it immediately. The emotion doesn't get to make decisions, but it does get to be heard. Finally, choose your action. This is where you take back control. You've felt the emotion, you've received its message, and now you decide what to do. Maybe you decide to address the situation causing the emotion. Maybe you decide that the emotion is based on a false belief, and you choose to reframe your thinking. Maybe you decide that the best action is no action, to simply let the emotion pass and move forward. The point is, you're making a conscious choice rather than being driven by the feeling. Now let's talk about staying calm under pressure, because this is where emotional mastery becomes visible to the world. Pressure reveals character. When everything is going well, anyone can appear confident. But when the stakes are high, when there's conflict or uncertainty or the possibility of failure, that's when your true level of emotional mastery shows itself. Pressure, whether it's a deadline, a confrontation, a performance situation, or a crisis, triggers your stress response. Your body prepares to fight or flee. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your muscles tense. This physiological response is automatic, but what happens next is not. Most people allow this physical state to dictate their mental state. They feel their heart pounding and interpret it as panic. They notice their shallow breathing and feel more anxious. They're in a feedback loop where physical stress creates mental stress, which creates more physical stress. The key to staying calm under pressure is to interrupt this loop at the physical level. You cannot always control your thoughts, especially in high-stress moments, but you can always control your breath. Always. Your breath is the bridge between your conscious and unconscious mind, between your voluntary and involuntary nervous systems. When you deliberately slow and deepen your breathing, you send a signal to your brain that you're safe, that this is not a life or death situation. Your parasympathetic nervous system activates, your heart rate lowers, your mind clears. Here's a technique that works remarkably well under pressure. It's called box breathing, and it's used by Navy SEALs, athletes, and performers worldwide. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts. Repeat this 4 times. That's it. 16 seconds of controlled breathing can completely shift your physiological state. The beauty of this technique is that you can do it anywhere, anytime. Before a presentation, during a difficult conversation, in the middle of a crisis. No one even needs to know you're doing it. But emotional mastery under pressure isn't just about managing your own state. It's also about not absorbing the emotional state of others. Have you ever noticed how being around an anxious person makes you anxious? How someone's anger can make you angry? Emotions are contagious. We have mirror neurons in our brains that cause us to unconsciously mimic the emotional states of people around us. This is useful for empathy and social bonding, but it's a liability when you're trying to stay calm while everyone around you is panicking. The solution is emotional boundaries. Just as you have physical boundaries about who can touch you and how, you need emotional boundaries about which emotions you allow into your system. This doesn't mean being cold or uncaring. It means being able to recognize when someone else's panic is trying to become your panic, and consciously choosing not to let it. You can be compassionate and supportive without taking on their emotional state. You can be the calm in their storm rather than another wave. Practice this by paying attention to how you feel after spending time with different people. Some people leave you energized and uplifted. Others leave you drained and stressed. The difference isn't always about whether the interaction was positive or negative. It's about whether you maintained your emotional boundaries or absorbed their state. Start noticing when you're taking on emotions that aren't yours and practice releasing them. Visualize them as a coat you've been wearing that belongs to someone else. Take it off and give it back. Another critical aspect of emotional mastery is understanding the difference between reacting and responding. We touched on this in the first chapter, but it goes deeper when we're talking about emotions specifically. A reaction is immediate, automatic, and driven by emotion. Someone criticizes you, you feel hurt, you lash out. That's a reaction. A response is deliberate, considered, and driven by choice. Someone criticizes you, you feel hurt, you pause, you consider whether the criticism has merit, you decide how to address it constructively or whether to address it at all. That's a response. The space between stimulus and response is where your power lives. In that space, you can choose. You can feel the hurt and choose not to act from hurt. You can feel the anger and choose not to speak from anger. This doesn't mean suppressing the emotion. Remember, we're not trying to not feel things. It means experiencing the emotion fully while not allowing it to dictate your behavior. Here's something that will change your life if you really internalize it. Your emotions are always valid, but they're not always accurate. You can feel absolutely convinced that everyone is judging you, that you're going to fail, that you're not good enough, and these feelings can be completely wrong. Feelings are not facts. They're interpretations, stories your subconscious is telling based on past experiences, fears, and beliefs, many of which were formed when you were young and don't reflect current reality. When a strong emotion arises, especially a negative one, ask yourself, is this feeling based on what's actually happening right now, or is it based on a story I'm telling myself? Is there actual evidence for this feeling, or is it an old pattern playing out? This questioning doesn't invalidate the emotion. It gives you perspective on it. You can feel rejected while recognizing that the other person might just be busy. You can feel inadequate while recognizing that you're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. Resilient people don't have fewer problems or easier lives. They just recover faster. They feel disappointment, but they don't stay disappointed. They feel failure, but they don't identify as failures. The emotion moves through them, and they return to baseline. You build resilience the same way you build physical strength, through progressive exposure to stress. If you avoid everything that makes you uncomfortable, you become fragile. If you deliberately expose yourself to manageable levels of discomfort, you become anti-fragile. Start small. Have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Try that thing you're afraid you'll fail at. Feel the discomfort, survive it, and notice that you're okay on the other side. Each time you do this, your window of tolerance expands. Things that used to overwhelm you become manageable. You become someone who can handle whatever comes. The final piece of emotional mastery is developing what I call emotional clarity. This means knowing what you actually feel, not what you think you should feel or what would be convenient to feel. So many people are disconnected from their real emotions because they've spent years suppressing them, judging them, or performing emotions they don't feel to please others. Emotional clarity requires brutal honesty with yourself. You might realize you're not actually happy in a relationship you've been pretending is fine. You might realize you're not passionate about a career you've invested years in. You might realize you're angry at someone you love. These realizations are uncomfortable, but they're essential. You cannot master emotions you're not willing to acknowledge. Start a practice of checking in with yourself multiple times a day. Set reminders on your phone if you need to. Stop whatever you're doing and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Not what should I be feeling, not what I was feeling an hour ago, but right now in this moment. Name it, feel it, and then move on. This simple practice builds emotional awareness, and awareness is the foundation of mastery. When you master your emotions, you become unstoppable. You can walk into any situation, face any challenge, encounter any person, and maintain your center. You're not at the mercy of your moods or other people's energy. You're not controlled by fear or swayed by anxiety. You feel everything, but you're bigger than what you feel. This is true power. This is what makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Chapter 3. Breaking Free from Validation. Let me tell you something that might sting a little. Most of what you do, most of what you say, most of the choices you make are not really yours. They're performances designed to earn approval from other people. You choose your career based on what will impress your parents or peers. You hold back your real opinions because you're afraid of judgment. You say yes when you want to say no because you don't want to disappoint someone. You curate your social media to present a version of yourself that you think others will like. You're not living your life, you're auditioning for a role in other people's stories. This is the trap of validation seeking, and it's one of the most insidious obstacles to confidence. Because here's the thing about external validation, it works. When someone approves of you, praises you, likes your post, agrees with your opinion, it feels good, really good. Your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical involved in addiction. You get a hit of pleasure from their approval. And like any addiction, you soon need more. One compliment isn't enough. One success isn't enough. You're chasing a high that never lasts, that always leaves you wanting more. The problem with building your confidence on external validation is that it's completely unstable. It's like building a house on sand. What happens when the validation stops? What happens when people criticize instead of praise? What happens when you fail publicly? Your entire sense of self crumbles because it was never really yours to begin with. It was on loan from other people, and they can take it back anytime they want. Breaking free from validation seeking doesn't mean you don't care what anyone thinks ever. That's sociopathy, not confidence. It means you care less about what people think than you care about being true to yourself. It means approval is nice, but not necessary. It means you can receive criticism without spiraling into self-doubt. and receive praise without becoming dependent on it. Your worth is internal, constant, not subject to the changing opinions of others. Let's start by understanding why you seek validation in the first place. As children, we're completely dependent on our caregivers for survival. Their approval literally keeps us alive. We learn very quickly to read their moods, to adjust our behavior to please them, to become whoever they need us to be. This is adaptive when you're 3 years old and powerless. It's limiting when you're 30 and still operating from the same programming. Many of us never updated this software. We're still that child, desperately seeking approval. Except now we're seeking it from bosses, romantic partners, friends, strangers on the internet. We've outsourced our sense of worth to anyone who will give us feedback. Every interaction becomes a referendum on whether we're good enough. Every silence feels like rejection. Every criticism confirms our deepest fear that we're fundamentally flawed. The first step to breaking this pattern is awareness. Start noticing when you're about to do something primarily for external validation. You're about to post something on social media. Pause. Are you sharing this because you genuinely want to express yourself, or because you want likes and comments? You're in a meeting and have an idea, but you hesitate. Are you holding back because the idea needs refinement, or because you're afraid of looking stupid? You're getting dressed for an event. Are you choosing what makes you feel good, or what you think will impress others? This isn't about judging yourself for seeking validation. We all do it. It's about creating conscious awareness of the pattern, so you can start making different choices. Each time you notice yourself seeking approval, you have an opportunity. You can continue the old pattern, or you can choose differently. You can share your real thoughts, even if they're unpopular. You can dress how you actually want to dress. You can say no to things you don't want to do, even if people are disappointed. These small acts of authenticity are terrifying at first because you're going against years of conditioning. Your nervous system will interpret it as danger. You'll feel anxiety, fear of rejection, worry about what people will think. This is normal. This is your old programming trying to keep you safe by keeping you pleasing to others. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Each time you choose authenticity over approval, you weaken the grip that validation seeking has on you. Here's a powerful reframe that can change everything. Other people's opinions of you are none of your business. Read that again. Their thoughts about you exist in their minds, not yours. They're based on their experiences, their biases, their mood in that moment, their own insecurities. They're not objective truth about who you are. Someone can think you're brilliant and someone else can think you're average, and both opinions say more about them than they do about you. You will never control what people think of you. Ever. You can be the kindest person in the world and someone will find you weak. You can be assertive and someone will find you aggressive. You can be quiet and someone will find you boring. You can be outgoing and someone will find you obnoxious. There is no version of you that everyone will approve of. Because approval is not about you. It's about whether you match what they value, need, or expect. Once you truly understand this, you're free. If you can't control their opinion anyway, why are you contorting yourself trying to? Why are you dimming your light so others don't feel threatened? Why are you hiding your quirks to fit in? Why are you living in the prison of other people's potential judgments? Let me tell you what happens when you stop seeking validation. At first, it feels like free fall. Terrifying. You're so used to using other people's reactions as your compass that without them, you feel lost. You say something authentic and don't get the usual positive response, and you panic. Did I mess up? Should I take it back? Apologize? Explain myself? No. Sit with the discomfort. This is just withdrawal from your validation addiction. It will pass. Then something remarkable happens. You start to discover who you actually are beneath all the people pleasing. You start to have opinions that are really yours, not just reflections of whoever you're trying to impress. You start to know what you actually like, what you actually want, separate from what you think you should like or want. It's like meeting yourself for the first time. You also start to notice that some people don't like this new authentic version of you. They preferred it when you were compliant, when you agreed with everything, when you were always available, when you shaped yourself to their needs. Good. These are not your people. Let them go. Better to have 5 people who appreciate the real you than 50 who like a fake version. And here's what most people don't tell you about breaking free from validation. Some people will respect you more. The people who matter, the people worth having in your life, are attracted to authenticity. They're tired of superficial relationships built on performance and pretense. When you show up as your real self, you give them permission to do the same. You create depth and genuine connection that validation seeking never could. Now let's talk about a specific manifestation of validation seeking that destroys confidence: comparing yourself to others. Social comparison is hardwired into humans. We evolved in small tribes where your status relative to others determined your access to resources and mates. But in the modern world, especially with social media, this adaptive mechanism has become toxic. You're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You're comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. You see someone's success and feel like a failure, not knowing about their years of struggle, their failures, their privilege, their luck, their sacrifices. You're playing a game you can never win because there will always be someone more successful, more attractive, more talented, more whatever. The antidote to comparison is not pretending others don't exist or achievements don't matter. It's redefining success on your own terms. What do you actually value? What does success mean to you? Not to your parents, not to society, not to your social media followers, but to you. Maybe it's freedom. Maybe it's creativity. Maybe it's impact. Maybe it's peace. Define it clearly and then measure yourself against that standard, not against other people. When you catch yourself comparing, and you will because it's a hard habit to break, ask yourself, does this comparison serve me? Is it motivating me to improve, or is it just making me feel inadequate? If it's the latter, redirect your attention. Instead of looking at what others have that you don't, look at what you have that you didn't have a year ago. Compare yourself to yourself. That's the only comparison that matters. Another dimension of validation seeking is the need to be right. Think about how much energy you spend defending your opinions, proving your point, making sure everyone knows you were right and they were wrong. This need to be right is just validation seeking in disguise. You're seeking validation for your intelligence, your judgment, your worth. But being right doesn't make you worthy. You can be right about everything and still be miserable and alone. Practice saying, "You might be right," or "I hadn't thought of it that way," even when you still disagree. Notice how it feels to let someone else have their opinion without needing to correct or convince them. This isn't about being a pushover or abandoning your values. It's about recognizing that most disagreements don't matter, and the ones that do matter are rarely won through argument. Your worth is not up for debate. This is the core belief you need to internalize to break free from validation seeking. You are not worthy because you're smart, successful, attractive, talented, or liked. You're worthy because you exist. Period. Everything else is extra. When you truly believe this, when you let it sink into your bones, other people's opinions lose their power over you. Start building evidence for your worth that has nothing to do with external validation. Keep a journal of moments when you acted according to your values, even when it was hard. times when you were kind to yourself, times when you chose authenticity over approval. These are the building blocks of internal validation, of self-worth that doesn't depend on anyone else. Also, practice self-validation. When you do something well, acknowledge it yourself before looking for external praise. When you fail at something, comfort yourself the way you'd comfort a good friend. When you're struggling, ask yourself what you need rather than waiting for someone else to notice and help. Become your own source of approval, encouragement, and compassion. This doesn't happen overnight. You've been seeking validation for years, maybe decades. Breaking that pattern takes time and consistent effort. But every choice you make for authenticity over approval, every moment you resist the urge to people, please, every time you validate yourself instead of waiting for others to do it, you're rewiring your brain. You're building new neural pathways that lead to genuine confidence instead of the fragile ego that comes from external validation. When you finally break free, when you stop chasing approval and start living from your values, something magical happens. You become magnetic. People are drawn to you because authentic confidence is rare and powerful. You're no longer desperate for their approval, which paradoxically makes them want to give it. But more importantly, you don't need it. You have yourself. And that's more than enough. Chapter 4. Building Mental Armor. Your mind is under attack every single day. Negativity from others, manipulation, criticism, judgment, gossip, jealousy, projection. Some of it is deliberate, most of it is unconscious, but all of it can penetrate your psyche if you don't have proper defenses. Building mental armor isn't about becoming hard or closed off. It's about becoming impermeable to toxic energy while remaining open to love, growth, and genuine connection. Think of your mind as a castle. Right now, for most people, the gates are wide open. Anyone can walk in and drop off their baggage. Your coworker's bad mood becomes your bad mood. Your mother's anxiety becomes your anxiety. Your friend's drama becomes your problem. Social media's outrage becomes your outrage. You're carrying around other people's energy, absorbing it, making it yours. This is not strength. This is porousness. And it's exhausting. Mental armor means having strong boundaries about what you allow into your mental and emotional space. It means developing the ability to recognize when someone is trying to dump their stuff on you and refusing to pick it up. It means protecting your peace like it's your most valuable possession, because it is. Let's start with the most common form of attack, other people's negativity. Negative people are everywhere. They complain constantly. Nothing is ever good enough. They see problems in every solution. They drain the energy from every room they enter. And if you're not careful, they'll drain your energy too. You walk away from conversations with them feeling depleted, discouraged, pessimistic, even though nothing bad happened to you personally. Here's what you need to understand about chronically negative people. Their negativity is usually not about the situation they're complaining about. It's about how they relate to all situations. They've developed a habit of negative thinking, a pattern of seeing the worst in everything. This is their problem, not yours. You don't have to join them in that headspace. You can maintain your own perspective while they maintain theirs. The key is emotional detachment. When someone is being negative, you can acknowledge their feelings without taking them on. That sounds frustrating. Is different from, oh my God, yes, that's terrible. I can't believe that happened. The first maintains your boundary while showing empathy. The second joins them in their negative spiral. You can be compassionate without being consumed. Practice what I call the observer stance. When someone is venting negativity at you or around you, imagine yourself taking a step back mentally. You're observing their emotional state rather than merging with it. They're experiencing frustration, anger, pessimism, but you don't have to experience it with them. You're witnessing their storm without getting wet. This takes practice, but it's one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Another crucial aspect of mental armor is protecting yourself from manipulation. Manipulators come in many forms. Some are obvious, using guilt trips, threats, or aggressive tactics to get what they want. Others are subtle, using charm, victimhood, or confusion to make you doubt yourself and comply with their agenda. All manipulators share one thing in common. They're trying to control your behavior for their benefit, regardless of your needs or wants. The first defense against manipulation is recognizing it. Manipulators exploit your good qualities against you. They know if you're kind, so they'll paint themselves as victims who need rescuing. They know if you're responsible, so they'll make their problems your fault. They know if you hate conflict, so they'll create emotional turmoil until you give in just to restore peace. Learn to recognize these patterns. When someone consistently makes you feel guilty, confused, or obligated to do things you don't want to do, that's manipulation. Once you recognize manipulation, your response is simple. Hold your boundary. Manipulators are counting on you to cave, to prioritize their feelings over your needs, to sacrifice your well-being for their comfort. Don't. When someone tries to guilt you into something, you can feel the guilt without acting on it. I understand you're disappointed, but my answer is still no. When someone creates drama to control you, you can refuse to engage. I'm not going to discuss this while you're speaking to me that way. When someone tries to confuse you with circular arguments or gaslighting, you can trust your perception. This is what I know happened, and I'm not going to debate my reality. Manipulators will escalate when you first start holding boundaries. They'll get more aggressive or more pitiful, whatever usually works. This is called an extinction burst. Like a rat that's been getting food from a lever and suddenly the food stops coming, they'll press that lever harder and faster before they finally accept it doesn't work anymore. Expect this, prepare for it, and hold firm. The escalation is proof that your boundary is working, not evidence that you should give in. Let's talk about criticism now, because this is where many people's mental armor is weakest. Criticism can be legitimate feedback that helps you grow, or it can be projection, jealousy, or simply someone else's opinion that doesn't matter. The problem is, most people can't tell the difference. They take all criticism equally seriously, letting it wound them regardless of the source or validity. Here's how to process criticism effectively. First, consider the source. Is this person qualified to judge this aspect of your life or work? Do they have expertise, experience, or insight that you respect? Are they generally supportive of you, or do they criticize everyone? If your out-of-shape coworker criticizes your fitness routine, that's different from your trainer offering feedback. If your perpetually single friend criticizes your relationship, that's different from your happily married mentor sharing concern. Consider the source's credibility and motivation before you internalize their words. Second, look for the grain of truth. Even poorly delivered or malicious criticism sometimes contains useful information. Someone might be jealous of your success, but still correctly identify an area where you could improve. Extract the useful information if there is any, and discard the rest. You don't have to accept the whole package. Take what serves you and leave what doesn't. Third, notice your emotional reaction. If criticism triggers a strong defensive response, that often indicates it touched a wound or insecurity you were already carrying. The criticism didn't create the wound, it revealed it. This is actually valuable information about where you need to do inner work. If someone calls you lazy and you're confident in your work ethic, you'll barely react. If someone calls you lazy and you secretly fear you're not doing enough, you'll feel it deeply. Your reaction tells you more about your internal state than about the validity of the criticism. Finally, Decide what to do with the information. Maybe the criticism is valid and you want to change something. Great, make a plan. Maybe the criticism is invalid and you discard it. Fine, move on. Maybe the criticism reveals an insecurity you want to address. Work on that. But make it a conscious choice, not an automatic wound. You're in control of what you let in and what you do with it. Protecting your energy also means being selective about what media you consume and what conversations you engage in. Your attention is your most valuable resource, and everything you focus on shapes your mental state. If you start every day reading news designed to outrage you, you'll be outraged. If you spend hours on social media watching people argue, you'll feel contentious. If you consume content that makes you feel inadequate, you'll feel inadequate. This isn't weakness, it's neuroscience. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between experiences you have directly and experiences you observe. What you watch, read, and listen to becomes part of your mental environment. Curate your inputs ruthlessly. Unfollow accounts that make you feel bad. Stop watching news that leaves you anxious and powerless. Leave group chats that are constant complaint sessions. Stop engaging in conversations about topics that drain you. This isn't burying your head in the sand. It's protecting your mental space so you have the energy to actually make a difference where you can, rather than being paralyzed by everything you can't control. One of the most insidious attacks on your mental armor comes from gossip. When people gossip to you, they're doing two things. First, they're trying to bond with you over shared judgment of someone else. Second, they're showing you exactly what they'll do when you're not around. Someone who gossips to you will gossip about you. Always. They might seem like your friend, but they're just as happy to tear you down when it serves their needs. Don't participate in gossip. When someone starts telling you negative things about someone who isn't present, you can redirect. I'd rather not talk about this when they're not here to share their side, or simply, I don't really want to discuss other people. This will make you unpopular with gossipers, which is exactly what you want. Gossipers thrive on drama and negativity. Being unpopular with them means you're doing something right. Building mental armor also requires developing what I call psychological ownership. This means taking full responsibility for your mental and emotional state while refusing to take responsibility for anyone else's. Your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions, your choices, those are yours. Other people's thoughts, feelings, reactions, and choices, those are theirs. This distinction is everything. So many people have porous boundaries here. They feel responsible for other people's emotions, trying to manage everyone's feelings, walking on eggshells, sacrificing their needs to keep others happy. Or they blame others for their own emotional state, making their happiness conditional on other people's behavior. Both patterns are exhausting and ineffective. When you take psychological ownership, you stop trying to control others and you stop letting others control you. Someone is angry. That's their emotion to manage, not yours to fix. You're disappointed? That's your emotion to process, not someone else's fault. This doesn't mean you don't care about people or that you're not influenced by your environment. It means you maintain clear boundaries about who owns what. Let me give you a practical framework for this. When someone shares their problem or emotion with you, ask yourself, is this mine to solve? Usually it's not. They're looking to vent, to be heard, to process. They don't actually want or need you to fix it. You can offer empathy without taking on responsibility. That sounds really hard, is supportive. Let me drop everything and dedicate my energy to solving your problem while sacrificing my needs, is boundary violation. Similarly, when you're dealing with your own challenges, resist the urge to make them someone else's problem. Share, yes. Seek support, absolutely. But own your stuff. Don't blame others for how you feel. Don't make your emotional state someone else's responsibility to manage. This is mature. This is powerful. This is what people with strong mental armor do. Part of building mental armor is also learning to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to escape it. Modern life offers endless ways to avoid feeling anything you don't want to feel. Bored? Scroll your phone. Anxious? Binge watch something. Lonely? Numb out with food, alcohol, shopping, whatever. These behaviors provide temporary relief, but they prevent you from developing resilience. They keep your distress tolerance low. Practice sitting with discomfort. When you feel anxious, instead of immediately distracting yourself, sit with it for 5 minutes. Feel where it lives in your body. Breathe into it. Notice that the anxiety doesn't kill you, it just is. When you're bored, instead of grabbing your phone, sit with the boredom. Let your mind wander. Be alone with your thoughts. When you're craving something, instead of immediately satisfying the craving, notice the wanting without acting on it. These practices strengthen your mental armor because they teach your nervous system that discomfort is survivable. Most of what we avoid isn't actually dangerous, it's just uncomfortable. When you stop running from discomfort, when you develop the capacity to tolerate temporary distress, you become nearly unshakable. Difficult emotions lose their power over you because you know you can survive them. Building mental armor also involves creating strong internal narratives about who you are. The stories you tell yourself about yourself become your reality. If your internal narrative is, "I'm unlucky, nothing ever works out for me, people always let me down," you'll interpret every experience through that lens and create more evidence for that story. If your internal narrative is, "I'm resourceful, I figure things out, I'm capable of handling challenges," you'll approach situations differently and create different outcomes. Pay attention to your self-talk. When something goes wrong, what do you say to yourself? When you make a mistake, how do you talk to yourself? When you succeed, how do you explain it? Most people are brutal to themselves, far harsher than they'd ever be to someone they care about. This internal criticism weakens your mental armor because you're attacking yourself from the inside. Replace criticism with compassionate truth-telling. Instead of, "I'm so stupid, I always mess everything up," try, "I made a mistake. That's part of being human. What can I learn from this?" Instead of, "I'm such a failure," try, "This didn't work out. What do I want to try next?" Instead of, "Everyone thinks I'm an idiot," try, "Some people might have been critical, and that's okay. I don't need universal approval." This isn't toxic positivity where you pretend everything is fine when it's not. It's realistic self-compassion where you acknowledge difficulty without turning it into identity-level condemnation. The way you speak to yourself matters more than almost anything else because you're the voice you hear most consistently. Finally, building mental armor requires having a strong sense of purpose. When you know what you're working toward, when you have goals and values that matter deeply to you, other people's negativity and manipulation have less impact. You're oriented toward your North Star, and distractions are just distractions. You can acknowledge them and keep moving. Without purpose, you're vulnerable to being pulled in every direction. You're reactive, susceptible to whatever energy or agenda is strongest in your environment. With purpose, you have an organizing principle, a filter for deciding what deserves your attention and energy and what doesn't. This clarity is powerful protection. Your mental armor isn't about being hard or cold. It's about being boundaried, discerning, and protective of your internal state. It's about recognizing that you can't control what comes at you, but you can absolutely control what you let in. You can be kind and still have strong boundaries. You can be open and still be selective. You can be caring and still prioritize your own well-being. Build this armor one layer at a time. Practice one skill until it becomes natural. then add another. Maybe you start with recognizing manipulation, then you add boundaries with negative people. Then you work on processing criticism effectively. Then you curate your media consumption. Each layer makes you stronger, more protected, more capable of maintaining your center regardless of what's swirling around you. This is essential armor for navigating a world that will constantly try to destabilize you. Chapter 5. Confidence in Action. Everything we've discussed so far, non-reaction, emotional mastery, freedom from validation, mental armor, all of it means nothing if you don't put it into practice. Confidence isn't something you think your way into, it's something you act your way into. You develop confidence by taking action despite fear, by doing the thing before you feel ready, by stepping into discomfort repeatedly until it becomes your comfort zone. This is where most people fail. They read books, watch videos, understand concepts intellectually, and then wait to feel confident before they act. But that's backwards. You don't get confident and then take action. You take action and then become confident. Confidence is the result of proving to yourself that you can handle things, and you can only prove that by actually handling things. Let's start with body language because it's the most immediate and visible way to project confidence. Your body and mind are connected in a bidirectional loop. Your mental state affects your physiology, but your physiology also affects your mental state. When you're anxious, your shoulders hunch, your chest caves, your head drops. But if you forcibly adopt a confident posture, taking up space, shoulders back, head high, your mind starts to believe it. There's research showing that holding a power pose for just 2 minutes increases testosterone and decreases cortisol. Your body can literally change your brain chemistry. Here's how to use this. Before any situation where you need to project confidence, whether it's a presentation, a difficult conversation, a social event, or a job interview, spend 2 minutes in a confident posture. Stand with your feet wide, hands on hips or arms raised in a victory pose. Take up space. Breathe deeply. Your rational mind might feel silly, but your nervous system will respond. You'll walk into that situation with your physiology already primed for confidence. During the situation, maintain open body language. Don't cross your arms. Don't make yourself small. Don't fidget excessively. Stand or sit up straight. Make eye contact. Move deliberately rather than nervously. These behaviors don't just signal confidence to others, they reinforce it in yourself. Your brain reads your own body language and adjusts your internal state accordingly. Voice is another critical element. Confident people speak with authority, not because they're always certain they're right, but because they're certain they have a right to speak. They don't uptalk, ending statements like questions. They don't fill every pause with and like. They don't rush through their words as if apologizing for taking up auditory space. They speak clearly, at a measured pace, and they're comfortable with silence. Practice speaking more slowly. This is one of the simplest but most powerful changes you can make. Nervous people speak quickly, as if they need to get their words out before someone cuts them off or before they lose their nerve. Confident people take their time. They know their words have value, and people will wait to hear them. Slow down by about 20% from your normal pace in high-stakes situations. It will feel uncomfortably slow to you, but it will sound more authoritative and confident to listeners. Lower your vocal pitch slightly, especially at the end of sentences. When your pitch rises at the end of a statement, it sounds like a question, like you're seeking approval for what you just said. Keep your pitch level or dropping slightly at the end of statements. This signals certainty. Again, it's not about always being right. It's about owning what you say. Use pauses strategically. Many people are terrified of silence in conversation, so they fill every gap with words. This makes them seem nervous and diminishes the impact of what they say. Confident people are comfortable with silence. They pause before answering a question, showing they're thoughtfully considering rather than reactively responding. They pause after making an important point, giving it room to land. They pause when someone interrupts them, letting the silence become uncomfortable until the other person backs off. Now let's talk about entering rooms, because this is a moment when confidence is particularly visible. When you walk into a room, especially a room full of people, your body language and energy in those first few seconds set the tone for every interaction that follows. Most people enter nervously, quickly scanning for someone they know, rushing to minimize their exposure to being seen alone, broadcasting insecurity. Confident entry is different. You open the door fully. You step through deliberately. You pause for a moment to survey the room. You're not scanning desperately for rescue. You're observing from a place of calm. You make eye contact with a few people. You might nod or smile slightly, and then you move into the space with purpose. You're not in a hurry. You're not apologetic for existing in this space. You belong there as much as anyone. This applies whether you're walking into a party where you don't know anyone, entering a conference room for a meeting, or joining a group conversation already in progress. That moment of pause, of calm observation, of deliberate movement, it communicates confidence more than almost anything you could say. Let's discuss initiating conversations because this is where many people's confidence breaks down. Small talk feels artificial, and they don't know how to move beyond it, or they worry about bothering people, or they freeze when trying to think of something interesting to say. All of this is overthinking. Conversation is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. The key to confident conversation is genuine curiosity. Stop thinking about how you're being perceived and start being actually interested in the other person. Ask questions and listen to the answers, not just waiting for your turn to talk. People love talking about themselves, their experiences, their opinions. When you give them that opportunity and actually pay attention, they walk away thinking you're a great conversationalist, even if you barely talked about yourself. But here's the critical piece. Confident people don't interview, they converse. There's a difference between asking question after question like you're conducting an interrogation, and asking questions that build on what's been said, that create a natural flow. After someone answers, you might share a related thought or experience, then ask a follow-up question. It's a dance, not a deposition. Also, confident people are comfortable with disagreement in conversation. If someone says something you disagree with, you don't have to nod and pretend to agree to keep things pleasant. You can say, "I see it differently," and explain your perspective, not aggressively, not dismissively, just calmly presenting an alternative view. This shows you have your own thoughts, and you're not afraid to express them, even when they diverge from others. That's magnetic. When it comes to difficult conversations, confidence means addressing issues directly rather than avoiding them or hoping they'll resolve themselves. If someone has upset you, disrespected you, or violated a boundary, confident action means bringing it up. Not in an accusatory way, not in a dramatic way, but clearly and directly. "Hey, when you said X, it felt disrespectful to me. I need that to not happen again." Most people avoid these conversations because they fear conflict, awkwardness, or making things worse. But unaddressed issues don't disappear, they fester. They create resentment, distance, and ongoing tension. A few minutes of discomfort to clear the air is always better than weeks or months of unresolved bad feeling. Confident people know this, so they lean into difficult conversations rather than away from them. When having difficult conversations, stick to observations and your experience rather than accusations and assumptions. "I noticed you interrupted me several times in the meeting," is better than "you're always trying to undermine me." The first is a factual observation the person can respond to. The second is a character judgment that will make them defensive. Own your experience without claiming to know their intentions. When that happened, I felt frustrated. Is powerful because it's inarguable. They might not have meant to frustrate you, but they can't tell you that you didn't feel what you felt. Confidence in action also means knowing when to walk away. From conversations that are going nowhere, from people who consistently disrespect you, from situations that violate your values, from opportunities that look good on paper but feel wrong in your gut. Many people stay in things far too long because they fear being seen as a quitter, because they've already invested time or energy, because they're trying to avoid uncomfortable conversations or decisions. Confident people cut their losses. They recognize that continuing down a wrong path just because you've already started is terrible logic. They're willing to walk away from anything that's not serving them, regardless of sunk costs or what others might think. This isn't flakiness, it's discernment. It's valuing your time, energy, and well-being enough to redirect when needed. This applies to everything from leaving a party when you're not enjoying it instead of staying out of obligation, to ending a relationship that's not working instead of hoping it will improve, to quitting a job that's destroying your mental health instead of waiting for the right time or external permission. Confident action often means saying no, even when yes would be easier in the moment. Let's talk about taking up space, because this is something women especially are socialized not to do, but it affects many men as well. Taking up physical space, taking up conversational space, taking up time and attention. So many people unconsciously make themselves smaller to avoid being seen as imposing or selfish. They apologize for existing. Stop apologizing for taking up space. When you sit, sit fully. Don't perch on the edge of your seat like you might need to leave any moment. Spread out a bit. Put your bag down. Get comfortable. When you speak, don't apologize before stating your opinion. Don't start every contribution with, "This might be stupid, but," or "I'm not sure if this is relevant, but." Just state what you think. Let it stand on its own merit without preemptive apology. Stop saying sorry for things that don't require apology. You don't need to apologize for asking a question, for having needs, for existing in shared space. Obviously, apologize when you actually do something wrong, when you hurt someone or make a genuine mistake. But chronic apologizing diminishes you. It tells the world and tells yourself that your presence is something to be excused rather than something natural and valuable. Confidence in social situations often comes down to being comfortable with yourself when you're not performing. Can you stand alone at an event without desperately seeking someone to talk to? Can you sit in a coffee shop by yourself without hiding behind your phone? Can you walk down the street without avoiding eye contact with everyone you pass? These small acts of comfort in your own presence build genuine confidence because they prove to you that you're okay on your own, that you don't need constant external validation or distraction. Practice this deliberately. Go to a restaurant alone and enjoy your meal. Go to a movie alone. Take a walk through your city making comfortable eye contact with people. Stand somewhere public and simply observe without needing to be busy. The discomfort you feel initially is just unfamiliarity. Push through it a few times and it becomes normal. You start to actually enjoy your own company, and that's when confidence becomes unshakable. Let's discuss making decisions confidently, because this is where many people's insecurity shows most clearly. They waffle, they seek consensus, they need extensive validation before committing to any choice. This comes from fear of making the wrong decision and being judged for it. But here's the truth. There's rarely one right decision. There are different decisions with different outcomes, and you can't know which outcome would have been better until after you've lived it. Confident decision-making means gathering the information you reasonably can, considering your options, and then choosing. Not agonizing for weeks, not polling everyone you know for their opinion, not trying to find a guarantee that doesn't exist. Choose, commit to your choice, and then make it work. Even if it turns out to be suboptimal, you'll learn from it and make a better choice next time. Indecision is often worse than a less than perfect decision because it keeps you stuck. When you make a decision, own it. Don't hedge. Don't immediately undermine your own choice by listing all the reasons it might be wrong. I've decided to take this job is confident. I've decided to take this job, but I don't know. Maybe I should have considered the other offer more. What do you think? Did I make a mistake? Is painful to watch and invites others to question your judgment. This doesn't mean being inflexible. If new information comes to light that genuinely changes the equation, you can change your decision. But changing your mind because you're insecure about the choice, or because someone expressed doubt, or because you're afraid of commitment, that's different. That's wishy-washy, and it erodes both your confidence and others' confidence in you. Taking action confidently also means following through on your commitments. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you can't do it, communicate that clearly and quickly rather than avoiding it and hoping everyone forgets. Reliability builds confidence because it proves to you and others that you are someone whose word means something. Unreliability does the opposite, creating a cycle where you trust yourself less and others trust you less, which makes you even less confident. Start small if you need to. Make commitments you know you can keep, even if they're minor. Show up on time. Finish what you start. Do what you say you'll do. Track your follow-through. As you build a pattern of reliability, your self-trust grows, and self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Finally, confidence in action means being willing to fail publicly. This is perhaps the most important and most difficult aspect. As long as you only do things you're certain you'll succeed at, your confidence will be limited and fragile. Real confidence comes from trying things that might not work, from putting yourself in situations where failure is possible, and discovering that you survive and learn from failures. This means raising your hand even when you're not sure you have the right answer. It means submitting your work even though it's not perfect. It means asking someone out even though they might say no. It means starting the business even though it might fail. It means creating and sharing your art even though people might not like it. Every time you do something despite the possibility of failure, you prove to yourself that you're brave. You build confidence not from the outcome, but from the fact that you tried. People who project the most confidence aren't people who never fail. They're people who fail regularly, learn from it, and keep going. They've separated their self-worth from their outcomes. They've stopped needing to be perfect or right all the time. They're comfortable being a work in progress. This is what makes them dangerous in the best sense of the word. They can't be stopped by fear of failure because they've already failed plenty of times and they're still here. Start taking action today. Not when you feel ready, not when you have it all figured out now. Small actions, if big ones feel too intimidating, but action nonetheless. Every action you take builds evidence that you're capable, and that evidence builds confidence. Confidence is not a prerequisite for action, it's the result of action. Act your way into confidence, and watch how everything changes. Chapter 6. Becoming unshakable. You've made it to the final chapter, which means you now understand the building blocks of dangerous confidence. Non-reaction gives you control. Emotional mastery gives you stability. Freedom from validation gives you authenticity. Mental armor gives you protection. Confidence in action gives you momentum. Now we bring it all together to create something greater than the sum of its parts, an unshakable foundation for your life. Unshakable doesn't mean you never feel fear, doubt, or pain. It means these experiences don't derail you. They don't define you. They pass through you like weather, sometimes intense, but always temporary. You remain grounded in who you are and what you value, regardless of external circumstances or internal turbulence. This is the ultimate expression of confidence, the place where you're no longer performing confidence or trying to maintain it, but simply living from it as your natural state. Let's start by talking about identity, because this is the foundation of everything. Who are you beneath all the roles you play, all the labels others put on you, all the achievements and failures that mark your life? Most people never ask this question sincerely. They define themselves by what they do, who they know, what they have, what they've accomplished. But all of these are external and temporary. Jobs end. Relationships change. Achievements fade into the past. Possessions are lost. If your identity is built on these things, you're building on sand. Unshakable identity comes from within. It's based on your values, your character, your intrinsic worth as a human being. This identity doesn't change when circumstances change. You know who you are regardless of whether you're succeeding or failing, whether people approve or disapprove, whether life is easy or hard. This knowing becomes your anchor. Start by clarifying your core values. What matters most to you? Not what should matter, not what your parents or society says should matter, but what actually matters to you. Is it integrity? Freedom? Growth? Connection? Creativity? Justice? Impact? Get clear on your top 3 to 5 values. Write them down. These values become your decision-making framework, your compass when you're lost, your foundation when everything else is unstable. Then, commit to living by these values regardless of convenience. This is where it gets real. It's easy to value integrity when telling the truth is painless. It's harder when honesty might cost you something. It's easy to value growth when learning is fun. It's harder when growth requires admitting you are wrong or starting over. Your values only mean something when you honor them, even when it's difficult. Each time you make a decision aligned with your values, even when it's hard, you strengthen your identity. You prove to yourself that you are who you say you are. This builds unshakable confidence because it's not based on outcomes or others' opinions, it's based on your integrity. You can lose everything else and still have this. Unshakable confidence also requires accepting that some people won't like you, won't understand you, won't approve of your choices. This isn't a failure on your part, it's a mathematical certainty. You cannot be authentic and universally liked. Your realness will resonate with some people and repel others. This is not just okay, it's necessary. The people who are repelled by the real you were never your people anyway. Stop trying to be everything to everyone. Stop softening your edges to fit in. Stop hiding your quirks to be more palatable. The right people, your people, will appreciate you because of who you are, not despite it. The wrong people wouldn't stick around anyway, so you might as well be yourself and find out sooner rather than later. This radical acceptance of inevitable disapproval is liberating. It frees you to show up authentically without the exhausting performance of trying to please everyone. Let's talk about failure now, because your relationship with failure determines how far you can go in life. People with shaky confidence avoid failure at all costs. They play small, stay safe, never risk looking foolish or incompetent. This keeps them stuck in their comfort zone, which is really just a familiar cage. People with unshakable confidence have reframed failure entirely. It's not something to avoid, it's information. It's feedback. It's part of the process. Every successful person has failed more than unsuccessful people have even tried. The difference isn't that successful people are better or luckier, it's that they're willing to fail and keep going. They understand that failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. You can't learn, grow, or achieve anything meaningful without failing along the way. Accepting this at a deep level removes one of the biggest obstacles to confidence, the fear of being seen as a failure. When you fail at something, and you will because everyone does, process it constructively. What happened? What can you learn from it? What would you do differently next time? Then move on. Don't dwell, don't ruminate, don't make it mean something about your worth as a person. It was an outcome, not an identity. Failures are events, not people. Also, stop catastrophizing failure. Your brain might tell you that if you fail at this, everything will be ruined. People will think you're incompetent. You'll never recover. This is almost never true. Most failures have minimal lasting impact. People barely notice or quickly forget. And even significant failures, the ones that do have real consequences, they're survivable. You adapt, you rebuild, you continue. The catastrophe your mind predicts rarely materializes. Building an unshakable foundation also means developing emotional resilience through intentional practices. Meditation is one of the most powerful tools for this, though it's often misunderstood. Meditation isn't about achieving some blissed-out state or stopping your thoughts. It's about observing your thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. It's practicing the exact skill we've been discussing throughout this book, awareness without reaction. Start simple. 5 minutes a day of sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, noticing when your mind wanders, and gently bringing your attention back to your breath. That's it. No mysticism required, no special equipment, no perfect conditions. Just you, your breath, and the practice of returning to the present moment. Do this consistently, and you'll notice that the mental and emotional turbulence that used to pull you off center begins to have less power. You develop the capacity to observe your experience without being overwhelmed by it. Physical practice is equally important. Your body is not separate from your mind. It's part of your mind. The confidence and resilience you're building isn't just psychological, it's physiological. Regular, intense physical activity, whether that's lifting weights, running, martial arts, or any other challenging physical practice, teaches your nervous system that you can handle discomfort, that you can push through when things get hard, that you're capable of more than you think. There's also something powerful about the immediate feedback of physical training. You lift the weight or you don't. You complete the run or you don't. There's no ambiguity, no subjectivity. This builds confidence in your capabilities in a way that translates to other areas of life. If you can push through physical discomfort, you can push through emotional discomfort. If you can improve your deadlift through consistent effort, you can improve your skills through consistent effort. Sleep, nutrition, and recovery are also non-negotiable if you want to be unshakable. You cannot build lasting confidence on a foundation of exhaustion, poor nutrition, and chronic stress. Your mental state is directly influenced by your physical state. When you're sleep-deprived, everything feels harder. When you're nutritionally deficient, your mood and energy tank. When you're chronically stressed without recovery, your resilience depletes. Taking care of your physical health isn't separate from building confidence, it's foundational to it. This means prioritizing sleep even when it's inconvenient. It means eating in a way that supports your energy and mental clarity even when junk food is easier. It means building in recovery time even when you feel like you should be grinding constantly. This isn't self-indulgence, it's strategic. You're optimizing your operating system so you can show up as your best self consistently, not just in brief bursts followed by crashes. Let's discuss purpose now, because unshakable confidence is almost impossible without it. When you have a clear purpose, something you're working toward that matters deeply to you, so much of what used to bother you becomes irrelevant noise. Criticism doesn't sting as much because you're focused on your mission, not on managing perceptions. Setbacks don't devastate you because they're temporary obstacles in the long journey, not final verdicts. Rejection doesn't destroy you because there are other paths to where you're going. Purpose doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be change the world or cure cancer. It can be raising kids who are emotionally healthy. It can be mastering your craft. It can be building a business that provides value. It can be creating art that expresses your perspective. Whatever it is, it needs to be yours, not borrowed from others' expectations. And it needs to matter enough to you that you're willing to sacrifice for it, to persist when things get hard, to keep going when you don't feel like it. When you have purpose, daily annoyances shrink in importance. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Irrelevant. You have places to be and things that matter. Someone posts something online that could upset you. Don't care. You're busy building something real. Someone thinks you're weird or wrong or too much. Their opinion is noted and dismissed because you're not living for their approval. You're living for your purpose. Purpose also provides resilience during dark times. When everything falls apart, when you experience loss or failure or betrayal, purpose gives you a reason to get back up. It's your North Star, reminding you why you keep going even when you don't want to. Viktor Frankl survived concentration camps by maintaining a sense of purpose. Nelson Mandela endured decades of imprisonment without being broken because he had purpose. You don't need to face circumstances that extreme to benefit from this principle. Whatever you're going through, purpose makes it bearable and gives it meaning. Now let's talk about living boldly, because this is what confidence looks like in practice at the highest level. Bold living doesn't mean being reckless or ignoring consequences. It means making choices based on what you want to create rather than what you want to avoid. It means moving toward your goals rather than just away from your fears. It means taking calculated risks instead of playing it safe all the time. Most people's lives are defined by fear avoidance. They stay in jobs they hate because they're afraid of financial insecurity. They remain in unfulfilling relationships because they're afraid of being alone. They don't pursue their dreams because they're afraid of failure or judgment. Their entire orientation is defensive, trying to minimize discomfort and risk. This is not living. This is existing. This is surviving. And it creates a life of quiet desperation and eventual regret. Bold living means asking yourself regularly, what would I do if I weren't afraid? Then doing that thing, or at least moving toward it. Maybe you can't quit your job today, but you can start building skills for the career you actually want. Maybe you can't end a relationship today, but you can start having honest conversations about what's not working. Maybe you can't publish your book today, but you can write the first page. Bold living is about orientation and momentum, not necessarily dramatic single actions. It also means saying yes to opportunities that scare you a little. When something comes up that would stretch you, that would require growth, that would push you out of your comfort zone, your instinct might be to decline, to stay safe. Override that instinct. Say yes. Figure out how to handle it after you've committed. This is how you expand your capacity, how you discover what you're capable of, how you build the life you actually want instead of the life you settled for. Bold living requires accepting that comfort is not the highest value. Growth is often uncomfortable. Meaningful work is often uncomfortable. Authentic relationships are often uncomfortable because vulnerability is uncomfortable. If you prioritize comfort above all else, you'll stay small. You'll play small, live small, impact small. Unshakable confidence comes from repeatedly choosing growth over comfort, choosing truth over convenience, choosing possibility over security. Let's discuss leading fearlessly now, because confidence at this level naturally puts you in leadership positions, whether formal or informal. Leadership isn't about titles or authority. It's about taking responsibility and influencing outcomes. It's about seeing what needs to be done and doing it, seeing what needs to be said and saying it, seeing where a group needs to go and helping guide them there. Fearless leadership means making decisions when no one else will. It means standing by those decisions even when they're criticized. It means admitting when you're wrong and changing course. It means caring more about the right outcome than about being liked. It means holding people accountable, including yourself. It means having difficult conversations that everyone else is avoiding. It means being the one who names the truth everyone is dancing around. This doesn't mean being domineering or inflexible. The best leaders listen more than they speak. They create space for others to contribute. They're open to being wrong and learning from people around them. But when a decision needs to be made, they make it. When action needs to be taken, they take it. They don't wait for perfect consensus or perfect conditions because neither exists. They act with the information available and adjust as they learn more. Fearless leadership also means being willing to stand alone when necessary. Sometimes you'll see something that needs to be done or said that others don't see or aren't willing to address. Sometimes you'll hold an unpopular position that you believe is right. Sometimes you'll make decisions that others disagree with. In these moments, you might be isolated, criticized, pressured to conform. Fearless leadership means holding your ground when you've genuinely considered the situation and believe in your position. This isn't about being stubborn or inflexible. It's about having the courage of your convictions while remaining open to new information. It's about not abandoning what you believe is right just because it's hard or lonely. Some of the most important leadership moments in history came from people willing to stand alone against pressure, criticism, and opposition. You're probably not facing anything that dramatic, but the principle applies at every level. Now we get to the final piece, remaining untouchable. This doesn't mean being invulnerable to pain or loss. You'll experience both, probably many times. Untouchable means that your core self, your sense of worth, your foundation, these remain intact regardless of external circumstances. People can criticize you, reject you, betray you, and you remain whole. You can lose everything material and still have yourself. You can fail spectacularly and still know your worth. This is the pinnacle of dangerous confidence, the place where you become truly free. When nothing external can fundamentally shake you, when your worth isn't contingent on circumstances, when your peace doesn't depend on things going your way, you're untouchable. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because nothing can destroy you. You heal, you adapt, you continue. Building this level of confidence requires years of consistent practice. You'll have setbacks. Days when you forget everything you've learned and react from old patterns. Situations that trigger all your insecurities. Moments when you fall back into seeking validation or avoiding discomfort. This is normal. This is part of being human. What matters is that you notice, course correct, and keep practicing. Think of confidence as a skill you're developing over a lifetime, not a destination you arrive at and then you're done. There's always deeper to go, always more to learn about yourself, always new challenges that will test and expand your capacity. This is good. This means you're never stagnant, never done growing. Even when you've become unshakable in one area, life will present opportunities to become unshakable in new areas. Surround yourself with people who support this growth. Some people will prefer the old version of you, the version that was easier to control, easier to predict, easier to fit into their needs. As you become more confident, more authentic, more boundaried, you'll naturally outgrow some relationships. This is painful but necessary. Let them go with love. Make room for people who appreciate who you're becoming, who challenge you to keep growing, who model the qualities you're developing. Find mentors, either directly or through their work. Study people who embody the unshakable confidence you're building. How do they handle criticism? How do they make decisions? How do they move through the world? You don't need to copy them, but you can learn from their example. See what's possible when someone truly owns who they are and lives from that place. Practice gratitude daily, because unshakable confidence includes appreciation for what you have, not just hunger for what you want. Every morning or evening, identify 3 things you're grateful for. They can be significant or mundane. This practice rewires your brain to notice what's working, what's good, what you already have. This doesn't mean toxic positivity or ignoring problems. It means maintaining perspective and recognizing that even in difficulty, there are things worth appreciating. Continue to set goals and work toward them, but hold them lightly. You can want something intensely and work hard for it while also being okay if it doesn't work out exactly as planned. This is the paradox of unshakable confidence. You care deeply and you're not attached. You give your full effort and you release the outcome. You have preferences about how things go, and you remain centered when they don't go that way. As you continue this journey, you'll notice changes that confirm you're on the right path. You'll notice that things that used to trigger you barely register. You'll notice that you're making decisions faster and with more clarity. You'll notice that you're attracting different people and opportunities. You'll notice that you're comfortable with yourself in ways you never were before. You'll notice that you're taking action on things you used to only think about. These are the markers of progress. You'll also notice that other people respond to you differently. Some will be drawn to your energy, your certainty, your groundedness. They'll seek your advice, your presence, your leadership. Others will be uncomfortable with your confidence, especially if they're used to you being insecure. They might try to undermine you, to bring you back down to the level where they're comfortable. Don't take this personally. It's about them, not you, and it's confirmation that you're changing in real ways. Remember that becoming dangerously confident is not about becoming perfect. You'll still have moments of doubt, fear, insecurity. The difference is that these moments don't define you or stop you. You feel them, you acknowledge them, and you keep moving. You're not trying to eliminate your humanity. You're trying to master it. You're not becoming a robot without emotions. You're becoming a person who experiences emotions without being controlled by them. The journey never really ends because there's always more depth to discover, more capacity to develop, more life to live fully. But at a certain point, and you'll know when you reach it, confidence stops being something you're working on and becomes who you are. It's not an act, not a performance, not something you have to remember to do. It's your natural state. This is when you've truly become unshakable. You'll know you're there when you can face any situation without needing to hype yourself up first. When you can receive criticism without spiraling. When you can experience failure without questioning your worth. When you can be rejected without feeling rejected. When you can succeed without becoming arrogant. When you can lead without needing to dominate. When you can be alone without being lonely. When you can be with others without losing yourself. When you can want things without needing them. When you can try without guarantees. When you can love without desperation. When you can live without apology. This is what it means to be dangerously confident. Not dangerous to others in a harmful way, but dangerous to the status quo, dangerous to mediocrity, dangerous to the forces that want you small and scared and controlled. When you are truly confident, when you are unshakable, you become a force. You create change. You inspire others. You live fully. You don't wait for permission. You don't apologize for existing. You don't shrink to make others comfortable. You show up. You take up space. You contribute what only you can contribute. You live boldly, lead fearlessly, and remain untouchable by the chaos and judgment and turbulence that used to define your experience. This is your path now. Everything you've read in these chapters is a map, but you have to walk the terrain yourself. No one can give you confidence. No one can do the work for you, but you can do it. You have everything you need right now to start becoming the person you're meant to be. Start today. Start with one practice, one choice, one moment of choosing growth over comfort. Then do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Day by day, choice by choice, you'll build something remarkable. You'll build yourself into someone unshakable, someone dangerous in the best possible way, someone free. The world needs people like that. The world needs you confident, authentic, bold, unshakable. Not just for you, though that's reason enough, but for everyone whose life you'll touch, everyone you'll inspire, everyone you'll lead, everyone you'll show what's possible when you stop playing small and start living fully. Your confidence creates permission for others to be confident. Your boldness gives others courage. Your authenticity invites authenticity. You being fully yourself makes space for others to be fully themselves. So go, take what you've learned here and put it into practice. Face your fears and act anyway. Feel your emotions and choose your responses. Stop seeking validation and start living from your values. Build your mental armor and protect your energy. Take confident action even when you don't feel ready. Become unshakable through daily practice and unwavering commitment. Live boldly, lead fearlessly, remain untouchable. This is your time. This is your life. Make it dangerous. Make it confident. Make it yours.